the sound of children's laughter in empty streets, the clink of milk bottles at dawn, the smell of coal fires. If that hits you, you were there. You were a child in the 1970s Britain. This wasn't just a different decade, it was a different world. Real freedom, real adventure, real childhood. If you remember turning cardboard into spaceships, the taste of school milk, Saturday morning pictures, this is for you. 10 things that made 1970s childhood unforgettable. You might just remember who you used to be. Playing out until the streetlights came on. I'm going out to play. 3 words that meant absolute freedom in 1970s Britain. No mobile phones to track you. No helicopter parents hovering nearby. Just you, your mates, and the entire neighborhood as your playground until those orange streetlights flickered on like beacons calling you home. This was the era when children owned the streets. Summer evenings stretched endlessly, filled with impromptu games of British bulldog hide and seek that lasted for hours, and adventures that took you miles from home without a single adult worrying. You'd disappear after breakfast and resurface for tea, grass-stained, mud-splattered, and absolutely alive with stories of where you'd been and what you'd discovered. The unspoken rules were simple but sacred. Stay within earshot of the dinner bell. Don't go beyond the main road without permission. And when those streetlights came on, you ran home like your life depended on it, because it did. Missing the streetlight curfew meant no playing out tomorrow, and that was a fate worse than death. Every street had its gang of kids, ranging from toddlers tagging along to teenagers who seemed impossibly worldly. You learned to ride bikes on real roads, built dens in actual woods, and explored building sites that would give modern health and safety officers heart attacks. The playground equipment was metal and concrete. No soft landings, no safety surfaces. Just pure, unfiltered childhood where bruises were badges of honor. Your mum would shout your name from the front door when tea was ready, her voice carrying across 3 streets. And somehow, no matter how far you'd wandered, you always heard her. That sound, your name echoing through the evening air, was the soundtrack of 1970s childhood. It meant safety, home, and the promise that tomorrow's adventure was just one night's sleep away. Those streetlights weren't just calling you home. They were marking the end of a kind of freedom that simply doesn't exist anymore. Collecting green shield stamps. The ritual began at the checkout, that satisfying rip of perforated paper as the cashier tore off your stamps. The sweet smell of the glue as you licked each one, yes, you actually licked them, before carefully placing them in neat rows in your collection book. Green shield stamps weren't just a shopping reward. They were pure childhood currency. Every family had their stamp books. Thick, cream-colored booklets with grids waiting to be filled, kept in the kitchen drawer next to the shopping lists and spare change. You'd sit at the kitchen table after a big shop, tongue out in concentration, methodically filling page after page. 10 stamps per row, 24 rows per page, mathematics disguised as fun. But the real magic happened when you opened that catalogue. Page after page of treasures waiting to be claimed. Radios, toasters, toys, bicycles. You'd spend hours poring over every item, calculating exactly how many more shopping trips you needed before you could afford that coveted transistor radio or that shiny new football. The anticipation was delicious torture. Going to collect your prize was like visiting Aladdin's cave. The Green Shield Stamps shop in town, with its organized chaos of merchandise and that distinctive musty smell of cardboard and possibility. You'd hand over your carefully filled books like precious currency, watching the assistant count every stamp twice before disappearing into the back room to fetch your reward. It taught you patience, delayed gratification, and the value of saving up for something special. Every stamp was progress. Every book completed was an achievement. Every prize claimed felt like you genuinely earned it through weeks of careful collecting and dreaming. Your mum saved them religiously. You collected them obsessively. Together, you turned ordinary shopping into extraordinary anticipation. That's what made them green gold. Saturday morning pictures at the cinema. Saturday morning, 9 o'clock sharp. The queue of children snaking around the block, pocket money clutched in sweaty palms, all waiting for the magic words, "Saturday morning pictures are about to begin." This wasn't just going to the cinema. This was your weekly pilgrimage to pure, unbridled chaos. The ABC Miners or the Odeon Saturday Club, every cinema had their version, and every child in Britain knew the drill. You'd pile into those red velvet seats, hundreds of kids aged 5 to 15, all buzzing with excitement for 2.5 hours of cartoons, serials, and films that adults would never understand. The noise was deafening. The atmosphere was electric. It always started the same way. Everyone on their feet, belting out the club song at the top of their lungs. We are the boys and girls well known as miners of the ABC. Your voice would crack from shouting, but you didn't care. This was your anthem, your moment, your tribe. Then came the serial, Flash Gordon, Batman, or some cowboy adventure that ended on a cliffhanger every single week. You'd groan collectively when the hero was left dangling over a pit of crocodiles, knowing you had to wait 7 whole days to see how he escaped. The torture was exquisite. Cartoons followed, Tom and Jerry getting up to their usual violence, Bugs Bunny outsmarting Elmer Fudd, the Pink Panther strutting across the screen. Every joke hit differently when you were part of that laughing, screaming mass of childhood energy. But it was more than entertainment. This was your first taste of independence, your introduction to cinema culture, your weekly dose of pure, unfiltered joy. No parents to shush you, no rules except enjoy yourself. Saturday morning pictures didn't just show you films, they showed you what it felt like to belong to something bigger than yourself, making your own entertainment with cardboard boxes. The delivery arrived. Maybe it was a new washing machine, perhaps a television, or just something your mum had ordered from the catalogue. But for you, the real treasure wasn't what came in the box. It was the box itself. Pure, brown, corrugated gold that could become absolutely anything your imagination demanded. This was the era before video games, before 1,000 plastic toys cluttered every bedroom. If you wanted entertainment, you made it yourself. And nothing, absolutely nothing, had more potential than a good cardboard box. Within minutes of the original contents being unpacked, you were already eyeing up its dimensions, calculating its possibilities. A large box became a spaceship. You'd cut windows with kitchen scissors, draw control panels with felt-tip pens that bled through the cardboard, and spend hours piloting missions to Mars from your living room floor. The sound effects were all yours. Whooshing rockets, beeping computers, alien invasions that only you could hear. Your imagination provided surround sound decades before it was invented. Smaller boxes transformed into everything else. Dolls' houses that you furnished with matchboxes and bottle tops. Racing cars that you'd sit in and drive around the garden, making engine noises that could wake the neighbors. Robots that you'd wear on your head, peering through wonky eye holes you'd cut too small. Television sets where you'd put on shows for your family, popping up behind the screen to perform entire plays you'd written that morning. The beauty was in the imperfection. Wonky wheels that didn't quite turn. Windows that were slightly too high to see through properly. Control panels drawn with whatever pens you could find, often running out of ink halfway through. None of it mattered. It was yours, built by your hands, powered by your dreams. Your parents never threw boxes away immediately. They knew the rule. Every box deserved at least a week of being something magical before it went to the dustbin. Watching only 3 TV channels, and they closed at night. 10:30 at night. The national anthem played. The test card appeared. Television was over until morning. In the 1970s, Britain, telly didn't run all night. It went to sleep, just like you were supposed to, and somehow that made it infinitely more precious. BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. 3 channels. That was it. No remote control either. You got up, walked to the set, and turned a chunky dial that made a satisfying clunk with each channel change. Arguments over what to watch were settled quickly because there simply weren't that many options. Democracy by necessity. But this scarcity created something magical: appointment television. Everyone watched the same things at the same time. Monday meant Coronation Street. Thursday brought Top of the Pops. Saturday evening was The Generation Game, or Doctor Who. The entire nation synchronized around these shared moments, creating a cultural heartbeat you could feel. When BBC Two launched its programming each evening, you'd hear those famous opening notes and see that swirling globe. It felt momentous, special, like someone important had decided the day's serious business was done, and now it was time for entertainment. Even the continuity announcers had gravitas, their voices as familiar as family members. The test card during the day wasn't boring, it was mysterious. That girl with the blackboard, the toys arranged just so, the electronic beeps and tones. You'd sometimes find yourself mesmerized by it, wondering who she was, why she was there, trapped forever in television limbo. And when programs ended, they really ended. No rolling news, no late-night movies, no endless reality shows. Just the test card, the electronic hum, and the understanding that television, like everything else in the world, had proper hours. This wasn't limitation, it was rhythm. Television had its place, its time, its boundaries, and because it did, every moment of it felt like a gift worth waiting for. School milk in third of a pint bottles, 10:30, morning break. The rattle of milk crates being wheeled into the classroom. 200 tiny glass bottles, each containing exactly 1/3 of a pint of milk, each topped with a silver foil cap that you'd pierce with a paper straw. This wasn't just refreshment. This was ritual, routine, and for many kids, the most reliable nutrition they'd get all day. Every child in Britain knew the drill. The milk monitor, always the most responsible kid in class, the one who could be trusted not to drop the crate, would distribute bottles row by row. You'd get your bottle, lukewarm in summer, ice cold in winter, and sometimes frozen solid with the cream separated and floating like a disc on top. The taste was unmistakable. Creamy, slightly metallic from the bottle, with that particular flavor that only came from milk that had been sitting in crates since dawn. In summer, when the bottles had been warming in the sun, it could be almost sour. In winter, when your fingers were too cold to grip properly, it was like drinking liquid ice cream. But it was yours, provided free by the government until Margaret Thatcher, forever known as Milk Snatcher, ended the program in 1971. Before that, every child, rich or poor, got their daily dose of calcium and vitamins. No questions asked, no means testing, just the simple understanding that growing children needed milk and society would provide it. The ritual went beyond nutrition. It was a pause in the day, a moment when the whole class did the same thing at the same time. You'd compare whose milk was coldest, whose straw worked best, who could drink theirs fastest without getting a stomachache. Those little bottles represented something profound, a society that cared for its children collectively, that understood some things were too important to leave to chance or circumstance. Every sip was a small act of national kindness, delivered daily in third of a pint doses. Conquer championships and playground crazes. September meant one thing: conquer season. The mad scramble under horse chestnut trees, pockets bulging with the glossiest, most perfectly round specimens you could find. But finding them was just the beginning. The real art was in the preparation, the strategy, the almost mystical process of turning a simple seed into a playground weapon of mass destruction. Every kid had their secret method. Some soaked their conkers in vinegar for weeks, believing it hardened the shell. Others baked them in low ovens when their mums weren't looking. The truly dedicated painted them with clear nail varnish, strictly against playground rules, but worth the risk for an unbeatable conker. You'd drill the hole with a meat skewer, thread it with the strongest shoelace you could find, and practice your swing for hours. The playground tournaments were serious business. Conkers were classified like boxing champions. A owner had beaten one opponent, a twoer had conquered two, and so on. A 20er was playground royalty, its owner treated with the kind of respect usually reserved for teachers. The rules were sacred: no stamping on dropped conkers, no deliberate string tangling, and always honor the count. But conkers were just one craze in an endless cycle that swept through British playgrounds like wildfire. Marbles in spring, with their beautiful cat's eyes and steelies. Yo-yos that teachers would confiscate because nobody could concentrate on anything else. Clackers, those lethal acrylic balls on string that were eventually banned for obvious reasons. Pogo, sticks that left half the school limping. Each craze had its moment, burning bright and fierce before fading away, only to return years later to enchant a new generation. These weren't manufactured trends pushed by marketing departments. They were organic, authentic, passed down through playground whispers and playground legends. The beauty was in their simplicity. No batteries required, no instructions needed, just children, collectively deciding that this week, this month, this term, everyone would be obsessed with exactly the same thing: shopping with Mum at Woolworth's Pick and Mix. The smell hit you first, a sugary cloud of vanilla, strawberry, and something indefinably magical that could only mean one thing: Woolworth's Pick and Mix counter. Those towering glass dispensers filled with every sweet imaginable, lined up like soldiers of pure temptation. This wasn't just shopping. This was entering paradise with a paper bag and pocket money burning a hole in your hand. Your mum would hand you a white paper bag and deliver the sacred instructions. Fill it up, but not too heavy. It's charged by weight. Then came the delicious agony of choice: fizzy cola bottles or wine gums, dolly mixtures or chocolate raisins, flying saucers that dissolved on your tongue, or sherbet fountains that made your eyes water. Every decision felt monumentally important. The ritual was pure theater. You'd work your way along the counter systematically, pulling the chrome handles and watching sweets tumble into your bag. The satisfying thunk of each dispenser, the way jelly babies bounced slightly when they landed. The precision required to get exactly the right amount of hundreds and thousands without creating a sugary avalanche. Other kids would be doing exactly the same thing, creating an unspoken camaraderie of sweet selection. You'd watch what they chose, mentally noting good combinations you hadn't considered. Sometimes you'd catch someone's eye over the pick and mix and share that universal look of, "This is the best day ever." The weighing was always nerve-wracking. Had you gone over budget? Would your mum make you put some back? The assistant would place your bag on those old-fashioned scales with the sliding weights, and time would stop as they calculated your total. Relief when you were safely under budget. Mild panic when you'd been too generous with the expensive chocolate-covered options. But walking out of Woolies with your personal selection of sweets, chosen by you, mixed by you, was like carrying a bag of pure possibility. Every sweet a separate adventure waiting to happen. Listening to the shipping forecast and BBC World Service. 5:30 in the evening. Your dad would tune the wireless to BBC Radio 4, and suddenly the living room filled with mysterious incantations that sounded like poetry from another world. Dogger, Fisher, German bite. Southwest gale force 8 to storm force 10. Visibility poor, becoming moderate. The shipping forecast wasn't meant for you, but somehow it became the soundtrack of 1970s childhood. You had no idea what any of it meant, but it didn't matter. Those strange place names, Rockall, Malin, Hebrides painted pictures in your mind of wild seas and distant shores. The voices were calm, authoritative, almost hypnotic as they delivered their cryptic messages to ships you'd never see, sailing waters you'd never visit. It was your first glimpse into an adult world of serious business conducted in coded language. Later in the evening, when you were supposed to be asleep, you'd sometimes catch fragments of the BBC World Service drifting through the walls. Voices speaking in foreign accents about places that might as well have been on the moon. "This is London calling," followed by news from Africa, Asia, Australia. The world felt vast and mysterious, full of stories happening while you slept. Your parents treated these broadcasts with quiet respect, turning up the volume slightly, shushing conversations during important bulletins. This was how serious news was delivered, not with flashy graphics or dramatic music, but with measured voices reading carefully chosen words. The weight of the world reduced to radio waves bouncing through the darkness. Sometimes you'd lie in bed, transistor radio under your pillow, scanning the frequencies and catching fragments of distant stations. French music, German voices, static-filled signals from countries you couldn't identify. Each crackle and whistle felt like a secret message from the great wide world beyond your bedroom. Radio wasn't just entertainment, it was a window into infinity, delivered in familiar British accents that made even the most exotic news feel somehow safe and manageable. Writing letters and waiting for replies. The scratch of pen on paper, the careful formation of each word, knowing there were no delete keys, no spell check, no second chances if you made a mistake. Writing a letter in 1970s, Britain was an art form that required patience, planning, and the absolute certainty that somewhere someone would read every word you'd labored over. This wasn't instant communication. This was investment in time and hope. Every letter began the same way. "Dear," followed by that moment of choosing exactly the right tone. Formal for your great-aunt, who always sent birthday money. Casual for your pen pal in Germany you'd been matched with through a school exchange program. Excited for your cousin who'd moved to Australia and might as well have emigrated to the moon for all the contact you had. You'd sit at the kitchen table, best handwriting deployed, telling stories about your day, your school, your latest adventures. Every detail mattered because this letter had to last, had to carry weeks or months of news in a few precious pages. You'd describe the weather, your teachers, what you'd watched on telly, what you'd had for dinner, mundane details transformed into treasures by distance and time. The ritual of posting was sacred. Walking to the red pillar box, checking the collection times, sliding your envelope through that satisfying slot with a soft thud. Then came the waiting. Days if your letter was going across Britain, weeks if it was traveling overseas. The anticipation building every time you heard the postman's footsteps, every time your mum called, "Post's here," from the hallway. When a reply finally arrived, addressed in handwriting you recognized, it was like Christmas morning. You'd tear it open carefully, savoring every word, reading it multiple times, learning about a life happening somewhere else in real time, or rather in letter time, where everything was slightly delayed but somehow more meaningful for the wait. Those letters created connections that transcended geography, relationships built one envelope at a time, friendships nurtured through patience and ink. Which of these memories hit closest to home? Was it the freedom of playing out, or the anticipation of Saturday morning pictures? Maybe it was something we haven't mentioned, those little details that made your 1970s childhood uniquely yours. Share your memories in the comments below, because these stories deserve to be told, remembered, and treasured. And if this journey back in time touched something in you, subscribe for more trips into the Britain that shaped us all. Let's keep these memories alive together.